Hey, welcome to Soaring with the Eagles Part 2. Today's title is Eagle Eyes. Last week, we were in the nest. And so I brought an eagle out of the nest. Today, I want to take you to the eyes of an eagle. Last week, we said this, that an eagle can see 4 to 8 times greater than a human being. They've got this supernatural ability to see what no other predator can see. They see their prey 2 miles away. And when they swoop down at 187 miles per hour to attack, their eyes can do something unique. It can actually adjust as it goes down. Someone that's the prey is actually typically camouflage. And an eagle can see 5 shades of gray. So at 2 miles away, 187 miles per hour, can adjust its eyes to see a prey even through camouflage. The eagle is incredible. Its eyes are impressive. It's fabulous. It's pretty special to see. I felt like Donald Trump right there. His eyes, huge, incredible, huge eyes. Sorry. You know, there was Daniel. Daniel was someone who had uncommon eyesight too. As a matter of fact, Daniel was in prison and when he could see what others couldn't see. Daniel asked the armed guards, he said, hey, don't feed me like you feed everybody else. And so he ate vegetables only. And it was said that he was 10 times greater than his peers because of he was able to see things his peers couldn't see because of his commitment to the Lord. So today, as we're looking at a passage, I want you to see this, that this year, as we start a new school year, ask God this, to help you see things that you've never seen before. Ask God to give you supernatural sight. Ask Him to give you the ability to see things that you can't see on your own. And like Daniel, it happens when we pull away from the world and press in and grow closer to God Himself. As we grow closer to God, what then happens, we see Him clearly. And then He shows us more clearly what He desires for us. So as we connect to Him, He shows us clearly what He would have for us, and then we're able to please Him in our life. I want to take you to a passage in Zechariah. I don't know if you've ever been in that book before. Not a lot of people read it. There's this fabulous passage that I think is going to bless you tremendously. I'm going to read chapter 2, verses 1 through 5 out of Zechariah. I'm going to read out of the New King James Version. I just kind of like the words out of this version. It says this. It says, then I raised my eyes. Don't miss that. I raised my eyes and looked. And behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. So I said, where are you going? And he said to me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what its width and what its length. And there was an angel who talked with me going out, and another angel was coming out to meet him, who said to him, run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as a town without walls, because of the multitude of men and livestock in it. For I, says the Lord, will be a wall of fire around her, and I will be the glory in her midst. I just have 2 points to share with you today. And the first point out of this passage is this: don't live your life based on your own measurements. Don't live life based on measurements. Let me take you back to this passage. This here is a passage about a measuring problem. As a matter of fact, we've got a young man going out to measure Jerusalem. The walls have fallen down. That's how you protect a city. That's how you take care of a city. That's how you keep the enemy out. It was a big deal in ancient days to have a wall around your city. And as this young man is going out, imagine somebody with a yardstick, a measuring stick, some type of tape measure. He's got his notepad out. He's taking notes, and in his own Steve Urkel way, he's out there calculating the height and the width and the breadth and what does it take take to make this happen? He's surveying. He's got his little equipment set up. And according to my calculations in Common Core, if we can do this and this and this, it's going to take this much and that much and then here, and we got to put it there. And all of a sudden, an angel shows up in chapter 2 to this young man. He's just doing his job. He's just calculating. He's just adding up. He's doing the math. And as he does the math, this angel shows up and says, what are you doing? What's going on here? Well, I'm calculating. I'm figuring things. Put that away. It's almost like this angel. It's like God sends this angel to take the yardstick, breaks it over his knee. It's not in there. There's a little creative license on my part. And then it's almost like he takes the notepad, just rips it in half, says, hey, listen, your measurements are off. It's almost like he says, let me tell you why you can't measure the walls of Jerusalem. You can't measure the walls of Jerusalem because God's going to do something bigger than your measurements. Do you not know, young man, that I'm going to bless Jerusalem so much? I'm going to give them so many children and so much cattle that walls can't contain their children and their cattle. I see what you're adding up. I see your calculations. I know your math. Take that notepad. Let's tear that thing apart. Let's break that yardstick. I am Almighty God, and I'm here to tell you, young man, that we are going to pour out a blessing on you, and the walls of Jerusalem can't hold it back. My town will not have walls, because it will be blessed and it will be honored and it will be favored, and the blessing will pour out and the favor will pour out. Here's what that means for you, friends. Some of you need to hear this today. God is bigger than your calculations for your own life. You walked in here with a dream for your life, a vision for your life, for a marriage, for a family, for a business, for retirement, for finances. Maybe you got this plan. Maybe you're type A and you got calculations and you got it figured out, and you were going to retire at this age and this stage, and you thought you'd be here, you thought you'd be there. I want you to understand that God is bigger than anything that you can ask, think, or imagine. He's bigger than your calculations. He's bigger than your judgments. He's bigger than your worry. He's bigger than your fear. He is bigger than anything you dreamed, hoped, or imagined. God is bigger than your own measurements for your life. Also, what you need to know is when you live your life by your own measurements, you can measure yourself out of your own destiny. When you say, this is my capacity, these are my capabilities, this is my God-given ability, when you decide it, you put God in a box. And then all of a sudden you put your future on your own accord. Well, according to what I think, this is what I can do. And according to what I think, this is what my kid can do. And according to what I think, this is what my grandkid can do. The only problem with that is it doesn't factor in God. It's all you're the one factoring it. You're the one deciding. And all of a sudden, that Cajun independence comes out, and it's you making the plans. It's you writing the future and forging the path. And God comes into our lives, and he says, hey, tear that plan up. Tear this up. I'm bringing COVID. I'm bringing famine. I'm bringing a disease. That is not my plan for your family, for your future, for that relationship. I know you had that plan to date that guy. I know that was your plan, dating that girl. But I've got a different plan for you. I've got something else for you. I know, God, but my plan, I kind of like that guy. I kind of like that girl. No, those are your measurements. Those are not my measurements, says God Almighty. Anytime when it comes to measuring, though, we have to realize that there's a measuring spirit. I believe that some of us have that. It doesn't matter if you're an engineer or in construction or surveyor. You don't have to be in that field to have a measuring spirit. I believe that's ungodly. I think it's unholy. I call it judgmentalism, right? You're quick to be judgmental of other people, to measure what they can do, to measure their capacity. That spirit, that measuring spirit says, oh yeah, they don't have the ability to lead this. They don't have the ability to serve there. They don't have the ability to make a difference. They don't have the ability to raise kids. They don't have the ability to have that promotion, to be in man. They don't have the ability to manage. They don't have the ability. That measuring spirit will keep you out of your destiny. And one of the things that breaks my heart the most is how many of God's children listens to people with measuring spirits. Cajuns, let's not listen to those lies. Hey, I believe that's exactly how the devil works. They'll come in. I like to call them dream busters. They'll come in your life. They'll bust every dream, every hope, everything you have imagined. There's always a way you can't do that. There's always a way why that can't happen. We can't do that. We can't do this because of that. We got to move that. And here's it in the way. And that'll cost this much. And we'll have to move that and this and that and C and D and Z. There's just no way. A measuring spirit never gets to see the supernatural work of God. They don't get to see it in other people's lives. They don't get to see the supernatural work in their life. Why? Because they live on measurements. And the measurements they're calculating are their own and not God's measurements for their life. They're like self-appointed yardsticks. Here to measure you. They kind of come up with that yardstick, that meter that says, hey, this is your capacity. You got to fit inside of this. Don't listen to those people. There's a great movie clip for this. I'm about to show you a clip from the movie McFarlane. It's one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. Kevin Costner is the actor in there. Kevin Costner plays the role of a coach. He's a fired football coach who's kind of cast out of town. He goes to New Mexico. He has a raw deal where he was, but he goes to New Mexico. And when he's there, week one, he's the new cross-country coach. But they don't have a cross-country team. He just decides on his own, hey, I think I'm going to start a cross-country team. He's out watching, and he's in an agricultural area. In this area, they grow crops. And as he's watching, he sees all these young men getting up at 4 a.m. and picking crops before they ever go to school. So their parents are paid on commission. So the moms and the dads make their children go with them at 4 a.m. to pick. Then when it's time for school, they literally just jump up out of the field, they run to school. When school's over, they run straight back to the field to pick with their parents until the sun goes down. Well, the coach is watching. He watches one of these young men run to the field, and he begins to follow him, and he times him. As he times him, he realizes this guy, just based on running to the field to meet mom and dad, would be one of the top 10 cross-country runners in the state if they had a cross-country team. He immediately recognizes not just this guy, we got 6 that would be like in the top 10 in the state if we had a cross-country team. He starts a cross-country team, but guess who's against it? The parents, the community. Said, there's no way. He says, this is their way to go to college. What if they got a degree in agriculture? Imagine how much money you could help your family make if you got a degree in this and were able to take this to the next level. What if you're able to buy your own field, produce your own crops, had your own machines? What if you didn't have to pick it with your own hands and labor? What if you actually went to school to start your own business? And a dad says to the best runner, he says, we're pickers. That's who we are. We're pickers. He says, stop dreaming that crap. But I want to show you there's a dream buster in everybody's life, but there's also someone to lift us up. And I want you to show how Coach handles this. Check out Coach Costner right here.
All right, everybody, gather around. Come on. I want you to look around. Best in the state, right? Every team that's here deserves to be, including you. They haven't got what you got, all right? They don't get up at dawn like you and go to work in the fields, right? They don't go to school all day and then go back to those same fields. That's what you do. And then you come out with me and you run 8 miles, 10 miles, and you take on even more pain. These kids don't do what you do. They can't even imagine it. When I went out in the field that day with you Diaz kids, I'll be honest with you, it was the worst day's work I ever had to do in my life. And I said to myself, whatever kind of crappy job I end up in, it'll never be as tough as that. You kids do it every day. And your parents hope they can do it every day. And they'll do it for a lifetime if it means a better life for you. You guys are superhuman. What you endured just to be here, to get a shot at this, the kind of privilege that someone like me takes for granted. There's nothing you can't do with that kind of strength, with that kind of heart. Kids have the biggest hearts I've ever seen. Now go run your race. Thomas, you're the captain.
Hey, Coach. Want to call it?
Uno, dos, tres.
I particularly wanted to take just a moment to talk to our students. You're welcome on the peripheral to step in. I'm talking to you too, but I want to talk to the next generation about the previous one. Students, your parents are some of the hardest workers I've ever seen. Your dads work 3 weeks at a time without seeing you. And then they'll come back and work another job sometimes. And you Cajuns work. And you've got heart. You're some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life, too. You might cuss a little. You might drink a little. But you're good people. You're good people. Students, I want you to know your parents love you. There's nothing they wouldn't do for you to see your dreams achieved. You can do anything. Look where you come from, how hard your parents work, how big their hearts are. There's nothing they wouldn't do for you. But here's what you need to know. You can go farther and faster and fly higher than your moms or dads ever thought. You've got it in you because you've got the heart of your mom and dad. You've got that work ethic and that determination. But how about this? When you put God in it, you go farther. When you put God in it, you go faster. When you put God in it, you fly higher. Always remember mom and dad's faith. It's okay, I understand they cuss a little. They might drink a little. But you can go farther and faster and fly higher. If you commit yourself to God, don't let your measurements be based on what anybody tells you. You can do it farther and faster and better. What do you think about that, Bethel? Am I lying? Am I lying? I'm not. You Cajuns are amazing. You're amazing people. Number 2, if God's in it, there should be no limit. If God is in it, there should be no limit. I want you to, for just a minute, I want you to think about your own life. Some of you walked in here today and you've had dreams, and you let someone measure you. You let someone tell you that you can't, you won't, that there's no way. And so today, maybe your kids aren't with the Lord. And the truth is, it could be your fault too. It's theirs, but it could be your fault too. Maybe you weren't the godly example before them. If God's in it, there's no limit to what he can do in your kid's life. Maybe you walked in here too, and your career's not where you thought. You're out of job. Maybe you were laid off, cut back. And it's a season of lack for you. Friend, if God is in your career, your vocation, if God's in it, there's no limit to what you can do. Some of you are here and it's a dry season. If you invite God in, there is no limit to what he can do. Some of you are here and it's a season of desolation and depression and despair. If God is in it, there's no limit. But when you go through these things without God, that puts a lid on how far you can go, how high you can fly, how far you can soar. So put God in it so there is no limit. The Bible teaches us that God can turn nothing into something. But here's what you need to understand about God. In the book of Ezekiel, Lucifer measures God. An angel comes up to God and he's measuring him and saying, well, I think you got this much power and this much ability, and I would like to do things a little bit differently. It sounds a little bit like a teenager to their parents. I think this is what I think I could do that better, Mom, Dad. And so Lucifer does that to God, and God casts Lucifer out of heaven with 1/3 of the angels that Satan convinced that God could be measured. And what you need to realize is that God has some hidden powers. And you need to know that. Well, I'm not going to include God in on something, Rick, because I've tried that before. Here's why you need to put God in everything you try, think, do, and say. Habakkuk 3:4 says this: his coming is as brilliant as the sunrise. Rays of light flash from his hands where his awesome power is hidden. Whatever you thought of God before, God has more. What he has concealed, he can reveal. He's got concealed power that you don't know about. He's got concealed majesty that you don't know about. He's got concealed glory that you don't know about. So when Lucifer came up to God, started measuring him, power that he'd never seen before came out and thrust him out of heaven so fast. He had never seen glory like that. He had never seen majesty like that. He'd never seen power like that as he is flying out of heaven. And dear friends, you need to understand, if God is imminent, there is no limit, and just maybe there's hidden power that has been concealed from you, but that God can reveal to you. In 2 Kings 6 and 7, there's a famine in Israel. Things have dried up. People are hungry. It is a hard time. It's a COVID season. People have lost jobs. There's nothing to eat. Cattle have died. It's so bad. It actually says there in chapter 6 and 7 that they're eating dove dung and donkey head. Now, I grew up humble, but I didn't grow up that humble. It was like bologna and cheese for me, right? Dove dung and donkey head, that's pretty bad if you're going to eat that. It even goes on to say there, chapter 7, some of them were cannibals. They began eating their own children. Is how bad the times kept. A prophet comes in and he prophesies. He says, this time tomorrow, God is going to bless this place so much that you will be full, you will have plenty to eat, and you will not be hungry for days. Well, a Steve Urkel guy gets up and he starts measuring and he says, well, according to my calculations, and even if I think it says this, the windows of heaven opened, that there wouldn't be enough to feed all these people. The only thing that guy got to see was the bottoms of people's feet as he was ran over because God blessed. Food came and they ate and had plenty left over. They got to see the supernatural because they believed that God was in it. And when God is in it, there is no limit. But what happens to you and me is we lean on our past, what we saw from our parents' faith or our grandparents' faith. Well, maybe there's more that God has concealed that he can reveal in your own life. Maybe there's more power, more glory, more majesty that you haven't seen as a student, as a child, as a person in your own life. Today, when we worship, we were singing that song, I want to see a victory. I want to see a victory. You know, even when we worship, sometimes we worship with limits. We come in with a past. We come in with regrets. We come up with hurts. And we sing about a victory. But the truth is, I think sometimes I'm worshiping with limits of what God can do, or what he might do. What would worship really look like if we took out the past and the regrets and the hurts and we worship God knowing that there's concealed power that we've never seen before? That would be pretty incredible. What I'd like to do now is speak to you specifically, those who have Bethel Church as their church home. I know we're going through a tough season of COVID here in our entire country. It's my job, though, to lead you through COVID. I know many of you have lost jobs. It's a time of cutback. It's a time of unemployment, maybe even food stamps. It can be a difficult time for your family. I want you to know we love you. We care about you. Bethel tries to minister our community in every way. During this time, we too are impacted. Our tithes and offerings are down 10, 15%. We're cutting back personnel. We're cutting back operations. We're just like your family. but we still have to have a vision for ministry. If I waited for COVID to be over, we were going to roll this out Easter, but we've waited 6 months. If we waited for COVID to be over, it might be 2 years. So today I wanted to share with you a little bit about how we're going to stop measuring around here, about what we can do and what we have. And even in the season of lack, I want you to always remember that Pastor Rick gave you a vision of what God could do. I've talked with some of our leaders. I've been praying. I've written this down, so I'm going to read to you. Not a vision statement. We have some statements, but this is more than a statement. It's really, I call it our battle cry. Last week I gave you some statement. Our purpose is this. We exist to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus. That should be the purpose of a church, help people grow. Our mission, how are we going to accomplish that? Save lives, that's evangelism. Protect families, small groups, conferences, workshops. Save families and provide a hope and a future. That's what this vision is. So I want to share with you a little bit about how Bethel can provide a hope and a future for Jennings and the surrounding communities. This is the Bethel Battle Cry. We dream of a church that's a Cajun army, a gathering of every race to worship passionately the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. His name is Jesus. It's a dream of a church that defines people not by the side of the tracks that they come from, but by who Jesus says they are. It's the dream of a church where every generation is valued, the young and the old. It's the dream of a community that loves sincerely. It's the dream where the hurting, the depressed, the frustrated can find hope, health, and help. It's a dream of sharing the good news with tens of thousands across Southwest Louisiana. It's a dream of welcoming 1,000 new members into the fellowship of this family. It's a dream of loving, learning, and living in harmony together. It's a dream of developing people to full spiritual maturity through Bible studies, conferences, retreats, and a Christian school. It's a dream of equipping every member for serving significantly by helping them discover their God-given gifts and abilities. It's a dream of sending out future pastors and missionaries to make a difference in this generation and the next. It's a dream of sending out hundreds of church members to serve on short-term mission projects all over the earth. It's a dream of building a worship center that will seat these people, 1,000 people, a counseling center, recreational space, and more rooms for Bible study and prayer. It's a dream to minister to the total person, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and socially, all set in a beautiful Southwest Louisiana landscape with live oaks, shade, praise Jesus, bright flowers, and gardens. It's a dream of a community that gives generously, stands for truth, and wraps it in grace. It's a dream of a church filled with people who save lives, protect families, and provide hope and a future for their communities. We are confident these dreams will become reality. Why? Because they're inspired by God. Let me tell you why these dreams are important. This dream fulfilled will change the future of this community, the future of fathers, future of mothers and sons and daughters, many who are yours. This dream fulfilled can change the future of Jennings and the communities around it. Without this dream, some will continue to run from the Lord. Without this dream, many will drown in dysfunction. Without this dream, some will even die. Without a commitment to something that requires faith and requires us to continue to live, we will continue to live our lives in mediocrity. This dream is a challenge. This dream requires personal growth and deep faith. The enemy may attack our sons. The enemy may attack our daughters. He may attack our schools and our communities. The enemy may even attack you. But he will never have our faith, and he can't have our future. We dream of a church that is a Cajun army. We dream of a gathering of every race to worship passionately the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. His name is Jesus. That's the Bethel Battle Cry. I try to stay at the high level because it gives you room to dream. It gives you room to paint a picture. It gives you room to have a place. It gives you room to have a part of that. But if we dream and people really come, and they are, we're baptizing people by the droves, and people are joining our church at record paces. We're going to need places for them. We already have children's issues, Kids Cove especially. We have a back building that we have not really completed well. Rather than rolling this out at Easter and being insensitive about our situation, we just feel like we can't wait anymore. So I want to share with you just some dreams. So I sat down with a group of people. They did some dreaming. I thought we'd share with you just some dreams, okay? Check this out. What if that was in the back, our activity center? What if that was our activity center in the back, where we could have Bible studies and TNT and celebrate recovery? Those are a surprise. If we could keep going, thanks. That's the inside. All right, so the inside, that would be the inside of the activity center, where we could have some space to do a lot of different things with. We need children's space, and so here's a picture of what some children's space could be. Kids Cove, people actually have to walk through our worship center after the 9's over, or actually during the 9 o'clock, just to drop their kids off for 10:30. We also need more gathering space. What if our lobby really looked like that, where we had more space for you to talk and connect? These lobbies are not appropriate for a church our size, nor is it appropriate for Kids Cove. You see how Kids Cove with 5 years old and younger just doesn't give you the space and the drop-off. We have real issues that prohibit growth. What if the outside of our church, from the back, the activity center, to the front, looked similar together? What if we just had this one whole picture? We're just dreaming here. But we took a dream, we sat down with someone and said, hey, let's get a little closer. So we're going to move on our activity center in the back. Dwayne and Sandra Wilson, who own a construction company, volunteered their time. There's some drawings of reality in our breezeway. On your way to Kids Cove, if you look at those drawings, there's some right there. If you look at those drawings on the walkway, you'll see where we're going to move towards. That'll start in a couple of weeks. We're all in. We're cutting back. We're spending what we have. We're going to be aggressive, but not reckless. The only way through COVID is to give a future. Our communities need hope. There are lives that need to be saved. Now, some of you already measured what I've said. All right, Pastor, let me out. There's no way. Can't do it. This isn't really about me. It's about you. In the Old Testament, when Israel went into a war, they were always outnumbered, outgunned. There was no way. The numbers didn't add up. The math didn't calculate. So you know what Israel did when the measurements didn't work out? They put the praisers out front. For some of you, you are in a situation, you heard me talking, and you were like, yes for my relationship, yes for my job, yes for a promotion. Friend, you want to put that into action? You want to lead through COVID? You better put the praise out front. So as they lead us in this song, how about you worship like there's no limits? How about you decide that what God can't do? Maybe there's something that He's concealed that He's about to reveal in our school, in our church, but that only happens if something's happening in your life, where you work, in your school, and in your home. I'm not worried about this church. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about your family and what God can do there. So how about we praise? We put the praisers out front right now and praise like there's no limits and ask God to blow our mind with our children. Lord, I claim my children. Bring them back to you. Lord, my finances, they come back to you. Lord, my job, it is your job. I bring it back to you. I'm going to be a missionary on the field with my job. How about your home? Lord, I'm going to put scripture on my mirror and in my living room and in our dining room. Lord, all through my house is going to be your word. We're going to live on your word, Lord. I'm going to raise a godly home. How about we praise like there's no limits today? Would you stand with us? Sing this song like there's no limits. I'm going to make myself available. If you would like some prayer for your family, I'll be happy to pray for you. But if you come ask me to pray, I'm going to pray like there's no limits. Watch out.